For decades, retirement planning was built on a pretty simple idea: Social Security, pension, and personal savings. But that has shifted. That's why today we're going to talk about how that three-legged stool has evolved into what could feel like a pogo stick. We'll talk about why income diversification matters more than ever. Plus, there are updated planning strategies. We'll cover them. They can help you meet today's retirement needs. Hi, I'm Molly Nelson here with Lauren Merkel and Sean Honkamp. Did anybody bring a pogo stick?
Thankfully, no.
No pogo stick? All right.
It's better for everybody's safety if we leave the pogo stick off the set.
It probably is. They are tricky. My kids had one. I tried it. No success. So we don't have a pogo stick today, but we're going to make a comparison between the three-legged stool and the pogo stick. So first, let's talk about the three-legged stool concept, Sean.
One of those legs is Social Security. So for almost everybody out there, you are going to have Social Security. You put in the years of service, you have an earnings history, you get out to that age of 62 or somewhere beyond, and then between 62 and 70, you're going to be facing that Social Security decision. So yes, you want to put that time in, that benefit's going to be there, and then you get to make one decision at some stage of the retirement journey, and then that thing is set up and ready to go throughout life.
And that's why it's a leg on that stool, right? Because it's a foundation of retirement. It's a check that comes each month or a check that's deposited each month. And that's been the case for many, many years. So that's still intact. The stool keeps changing now a little bit, but let's talk about the other leg.
Well, the second foundational leg is the pension leg. The pension, some of the most financially secure retirees are those with pension because they have pension. Many of them have Social Security. That feels really good. Two different guaranteed income sources for life. A lot of corporate pensions have gone by the wayside, though. Really, at this point, only about 15% of Americans have access to a corporate pension. So that means there's a whole lot of people who are dependent upon that third leg, which is the individual savings. For most people, that's going to be a 401k or a 403b plan.
So the personal savings, the Social Security, the pension, that was the way it used to be. Now we know only about 15% of private industry workers have access to a pension. That's according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So there's a shift to what might feel like a pogo stick because really pensions are fewer and fewer. And today there is just more on the shoulders really of the retiree to plan and save for retirement.
If part of someone's plan has less of those guaranteed sources, then what that does is it puts more pressure on the balances that anybody accumulates during their working years. So it's on each individual person to be more intentional with that, know what people are saving, know what options they have to save as people are going through their career. And we need higher balances since we're going to have a lesser amount of guaranteed benefit.
And it just presents a whole bunch of challenges that people who were retiring, let's say in the 80s, like my grandpa retired in the mid 80s. He had Social Security, he had a pension from Ford Motor Company, worked at Ford Motor Company almost his entire life, and just a touch of personal savings. And my grandma and grandpa traveled around the country in their motorhome for at least 20 years, and they had a grand retirement. They didn't have a whole lot of decisions financially that they had to make because they had that guaranteed income coming in. Now today, with much of this responsibility on your shoulders, I mean, just think about the employer plan that you have access to. You have to log into that account. You have to decide how much are you going to contribute? How much do you need to contribute for you to hit your financial goals? Do you contribute to the pre-tax side? Do you contribute to the Roth side? Is the company match going to be enough? What do you have to contribute to get the company match? And oh, by the way, there's a whole bunch of investments that you have to select amongst too. And that is just the employer plan if you have access to it, but there's a whole bunch of other outside savings accounts that you can use to contribute as well if you're able. All of that now falls on your shoulders, as opposed to when my grandpa retired, most of that income responsibility was through Social Security and the pension.
Yeah, and I'm thinking when your grandpa retired, really the only decision he probably had to make was a pension decision. And usually there's only, 2 or 3 choices of how to get the money?
Yeah, at that time, lump sum wasn't even an option. So he couldn't even decide, hey, let's take all this money and roll it over to an IRA and I can kind of take income out as I want. They had a couple options of joint survivorship, single survivorship, and that was really about it. So even that pension election decision at that time was way easier.
And Lauren talked about all the choices you have when you set up your employer plan. Let's just use 401k for the sake of this example. So you have a lot of choices there. I'm thinking when you go to to retire, you even have more choices, or as you get closer to retirement, you have even more choices when it comes to 401k.
Yeah, people have been using that 401k throughout those working careers, and then people hit certain milestones, certain ages, or you change jobs, and now there's even more and more decisions that you have an opportunity to make. One of the most common decisions is hitting age 59 and a half. Most 401k plans have a provision that at that age of life, you have an opportunity to pick up that 401k balance if you want to, and now you can move it out to an IRA. The 401ks are great. They're the employer plans. You're limited to certain investment options, and you can only do certain things. When you can move that money out to an IRA, and should you move that out to an IRA is one of the big questions, but now you have more control. So that's something that people should want to be aware of, and now they've got even more decisions that they have to face.
Also, what we're seeing right now is a lot of people are leaving their employer prior to age 59 and a half, but they still have this money underneath that 401k plan. And for many people, that represents a whole new host of decisions, because if you qualify for the age 55 rule, now you may have the option to take money as income from that 401k plan that was at your old employer that you left after age 55, but before age 59 and a half.
Okay.
So your decisions are, do you take income if you need it, if you want it, or do you roll it over, or do you leave it underneath that employer plan? A lot of people are choosing to leave their work prior to age 59 and a half, but also people are being asked to leave with layoffs and things of that nature. So sometimes you have a choice, sometimes you don't, but the options remain the same. Complex and very important.
And another part of that is, one is signing up for these employer plans and 401ks, get the money in there, what tax type. But then the other big part of your savings is making those investment decisions. It can feel a little easier in the 401k plan because it's common to have 20 to 30 or so options. And that feels a little easier because you just have to go pick from that. One of the obstacles of moving that money out to an IRA is now you have full control of it. You've got the entire universe of investments. That's where a lot of people at that stage of life of 55 or 59 and a half and beyond, that's where you're going to want to have a professional to lean on. And that's the decision a lot of people make. They know they've got more options to think about. They want to feel good about the investment risk, the types of investments, and that can be a great time to have a relationship with someone that can help you with those decisions.
But wait a minute, there's more.
I knew it.
What about the cost?
Okay.
We haven't even begun to talk about the cost of investing for you. The 401k plan has a cost associated with it, but what is it? Can you see it? It's not easy to find. If you roll that money to your own IRA, whether you use an advisor or not, there's a cost associated with it. It's not necessarily easy to find. That cost comes into play because any cost that you pay, any expense that's associated with your investments, is going to directly come from your return, which will directly impact the outcome of your overall investments and how you can use them whenever you decide to use them for retirement.
Okay, so let's look at the three-legged stool again, because here's what I'm gathering so far, just in this first segment. Three-legged stools, lot fewer decisions for the retiree, the pre-retiree, the investor. The pogo stick, the reason it feels a little off balance, a little bit more challenging, is because you have to make a lot more decisions. So people are feeling unbalanced, or they could be feeling unbalanced. That's the analogy we're using today. But the key to feeling balanced, they want to feel more balanced as they head towards retirement, could be diversification. So let's break this down in two ways. First, income diversification, then tax diversification. Lauren, what is income diversification and how does it make people feel more balanced?
Income diversification brings balance back to the unbalanced pogo stick type analogy from a standpoint where you want income coming from different sources. One of the advantages, or even a disadvantage, I guess, depends on how it comes with the pension, is that it was static. There was not an inflation adjustment to it. You were going to get your $2,000 a month when you retired, and 30 years down the road, it was still $2,000 a month. There was no opportunity for market growth with that $2,000 a month either. Where now, when you are in charge of your own personal investments and then delivering income from those personal investments, you can structure those investments in a way where you can have different buckets invested differently. So you can get income now from this bucket, you can get income later from this bucket, and you have your income forever from this bucket over here, all invested differently, providing that balance and security and confidence in you that you know no matter what happens to the market, whether it's down big or it's up big, you're going to get income now, later, and forever. This comes with work. So the disadvantage is you notice there is more complexity, there is more work than what it was with the three-legged stool, but if you put that work in, and you put that plan in, it can actually result in a better outcome than the old three-legged stool.
And it takes away some of the guessing too. I would assume if you have this 401k and you've got some certain amount in it, you're thinking, okay, how much can I afford to take out from the 401k? At what time? When you have the buckets, it's a lot more clear. Okay, that money, the forever bucket, maybe it's to invest a little more aggressively because I'm thinking about it as the long-term money, but I know I've got the money to meet my needs right now. That provides a lot of confidence, I think, as you head into retirement.
Yeah, and you need to plan in its entirety to help determine how much money you need to take out. So before you create these 3 buckets, you need to determine what's your lifestyle going to look like. Because what your lifestyle is going to look like in retirement is going to have a direct impact on what it's going to cost, which is going to have a direct impact on how much you need to take out. And then that is going to help everybody who's involved in this process, this planning process, structure the 3 different buckets appropriately so you can have income now, later, and forever.
Okay, so that's income diversification. That can help create balance. This is the CPA over here. I know you don't file taxes for people anymore, but you did that for part of your career. So you love talking about taxes and of course retirement taxes and retirement tax opportunities. That's when you really light up. So let's talk about tax diversification.
Tax diversification within a comprehensive retirement plan is all about having different options. What we see is that a majority of retirement savings are in that pre-tax type of bucket. Those options have been around since employer plans existed, since 401ks existed. The Roth options are newer than the pre-tax balances. So for most people, most of their retirement savings is in that pre-tax bucket. So creating tax diversification means having the 3 different tax types that we talk about.
So the buckets are back. These are different buckets. So
Different buckets.
he had the income buckets. This guy's got the tax buckets. All right, let's bring on the buckets again.
We've got the pre-tax balances, which we just talked about. The Roth balances, which are our favorite balances because those are tax-free once we get the dollars in there and as they grow. We never owe Uncle Sam or the IRS any part of those balances. And then we've got the taxable buckets as well. So when it comes to taxable, think non-qualified or think brokerage or even just think about your basic deposit accounts with your bank. Anything that's not in an employer plan or an IRA, that's that taxable bucket. Why we want diversification is that all 3 of those buckets are taxed in different ways. I mentioned before, the goal of tax diversification is having control. When we have 3 different buckets, and if we've got good amounts of retirement savings in those different buckets, now we have more control. We can take distributions from the right types of accounts at the right time and be more intentional with what your tax bill is going to be throughout anybody's retirement journey.
So you add the income plan plus the tax plan. What that equals is opportunity. Opportunity to save a whole bunch of money off your retirement tax bill by being intentional, structuring the income plan in a way where you have income security, structuring the tax plan in a way where you have optionality as far as taking money from the Roth tax-free, taking some money from the pre-tax, taking some from the taxable. So you can deliver the income that you need now, later, and forever, but you can decrease your overall retirement tax bill. And that's something my grandpa never had, by the way. He never had that. Any of the money that came from the pension, as well as some of the money that came from Social Security, that was taxed at whatever those tax rates were that he also couldn't control. You also can't control your tax rates. You can't control if they're going to go down or if they're going to go up. Most people think they're going to go up, but what you can control is your income plan, marry it with your tax plan, and that equals opportunity for income security and potentially decreased tax bill.
And I know this is what you help people do. This is what you help people do so they don't feel unbalanced. This helps create balance for people in retirement. Another thing you help people do is watch taxes, because we're talking about the static nature of like a pension. I'm thinking of the unstatic or not static nature of tax laws. I mean, I know you guys both follow this. The tax laws are constantly changing. So sometimes you help people build these tax plans, but then you have to amend them when things like the Big Beautiful Bill Act pass.
There's so many decisions that we've talked about here just so far in this episode. And those decisions, we're going to help you make a lot of them, but we aren't making one-time decisions and then done. We don't build an income plan and say, okay, that's done, it's written in stone. We don't build the tax diversification and then we're not just done with it. Life is going to happen. Your retirement journey is going to happen. We hope it's almost all positive, but the reality is we get to live some of that. Unexpected or unplanned events happen, and markets are changing, and tax rates change, and your lifestyle changes, and income needs change. So we're going to make decisions, and then as time goes by, we're going to continue to make new decisions. We get new information. Everybody gets to a new stage of life where now we have additional new decisions that we have to make. So this is ever changing, and we're going to continue to have the best information so that we can help people maximize all of their benefits, whether it's those guaranteed ones, and as they take distributions, to be as efficient as possible for anybody's retirement plan.
All the legislative changes that we've seen over the last decade, whether it's the Big Beautiful Bill, it's the Tax Relief Act of 2018, it was the Secure Act, all of that funnels into tax implications. And whether those implications are going to be a positive or negative to you, the Big Beautiful Bill, what it did for many people is it offered another $6,000 of tax-free income if you're over age 65. And if you made a certain amount of income, you didn't make too much. And those who made too much are not over age 65. They didn't have access to that. And by the way, it also sunsets after a couple years. So these types of changes can be good, but you have to be able to understand how to take those changes, apply it to your plan in a meaningful way, and realize how these changes are going to impact your planning, whether it's short-term, long-term, or even mid-range. So all of this comes in together. The changes are here to stay. Changes aren't going to go away, but we have to pay attention and be able to apply it.
I do want to go back to the stool. One piece of that stool that's still hanging on is Social Security. Let's remind people though, because it is a big decision and it is an important piece of their retirement income.
It can add up to over $500,000 of lifetime income for a single individual, or over $1 million of lifetime income if you're a married couple. So it's not a decision that needs to be taken lightly. In fact, there's up to 81 different options for married couples. So it's not one decision. There's actually a lot of decisions.
We're back to decisions.
that go into it. But again, this goes back to the complexity equation. Complexity can make it harder, but if you understand how to use these rules to your favor, that complexity can actually result in a better outcome. Social Security is an important decision. There's a lot of options. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, my brother retired last year. He took it at 62. He said I should do the same. I'm going to do that. It's an individual decision based on your resources, based on what you're trying to accomplish with your retirement, your lifestyle goals, and everything else that you have baked into your retirement plan.
So it's great to have Social Security, and for right now, it's still here. Well, we talk about solvency and all that in different shows, but for right now, for most retirees, Social Security is a part of their retirement, but it's only a piece. You find for people somewhere in the 25 to 35% of their retirement income, so they've got to come up with more. They've got to come up with more. So let's talk about some of the strategies that you help some people use to create reliable income.
You mentioned before how we're only about 15% of people have that private pension, and that we know that's going away, right? That's why the three-legged stool has gone away. But you have the opportunity. Now we're getting a little bit into the investment plan. People build up these savings. You get to the pre-retirement stage of life or in retirement, and now you have a lot of more decisions to make. One option you have is that you can create this pension-like income benefit within an investment portfolio. These strategies are out there. I'd say for most people, these strategies aren't appropriate when you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. But at this stage of life, this is where you want to have more information and know what other types of investment strategies to be aware of and what they mean to you. So we can take a certain dollar amount of your total portfolio. We can utilize a strategy that is meant to be pension-like, just like you said, Molly. We can put some money in. The biggest strength of that type of strategy is time. So we take a certain amount of a portfolio, we put it into an investment strategy, we give it a certain amount of time, and then now at some future point, you can raise your hand and start getting a guaranteed monthly lifetime benefit amount.
And it's very strategic too. It's not just, he's like, you're ready for the lifetime.
Guaranteed income.
Yeah, that's great. And it's strategic though too. You're not just investing in this and not understanding when or how. It's investing in this kind of a product or this kind of an investment with a purpose.
It's a purpose. We said some of the most financially stable families in retirement are those with pension, but most people don't have a pension. This is a way to create a pension type income, which gives you the same level of confidence as my grandpa had when he retired with his pension and Social Security. And that's what really helps people pull the trigger on retirement, is that confidence. You have enough income now, you have enough income later, and you're not going to go without. And then you can also work on what happens when you're passed away if you have this guaranteed income. Just imagine retiring knowing you need $6,000 a month to have the lifestyle that you want. You have $3,000 a month coming from Social Security. That's going to be there as long as you're alive. And then you have $3,000 a month coming from this pension-like investment that you made. That's going to be there as long as you're alive. And then you have this other segment, your investments, that can produce for inflation. It can produce for the one-off type of expenses. Going into retirement with that plan in mind, set up, is going to give you a whole lot more confidence and security than just going into retirement and saying, I have an IRA, I'm going to take $3,000 or $6,000 a month from the IRA, and when it runs out, it runs out.
Yeah, and that's balance too. I think that goes back to the balance that a lot of people are looking for in retirement. We think back to the old way of doing things too. I'm thinking about that pension and Social Security combination that a lot of people relied on. There was an age associated with that. They kind of knew, hey, my pension, I'm fully vested, or I don't know if I have the wording quite right, at 62, so that's when I'm going to retire. It was easy. Well, today's retirees, it's a little harder sometimes to choose that number.
We find that it's easier to make that retirement decision when you can just plop down on that three-legged stool. It takes a little more focus to get beyond one jump out of a pogo stick.
Good analogy there, Sean.
He's used pogo sticks.
Yeah.
So having that three-legged stool, that helped you answer that question of when can you retire easier than what it looks like now. We talked to a lot of people on our Retire Ready calls, and the main question we're hearing from all of you is that you want to feel comfortable that you can retire, and you want to know that it's the right time, and then do you have enough? Going back to having the three-legged stool, those answers were clearer. They were easier. Your pension was eligible at 62, for example. You know you can elect Social Security at 62. Guess what? You're going to retire at 62, and that's what the process looked like for a lot of people. Now, again, it takes more focus. The decisions are more on each individual to have a good sense of what is your lifestyle need, what kind of guaranteed sources do you have, what balances do you own. Start making some of those income diversification decisions, the tax diversification. So it takes a lot more focus and intention, and it really takes that comprehensive retirement plan, which is what we do.
And for the families and individuals that you help, that intention looks like a Retire Secure roadmap.
A Retire Secure roadmap, which is combined with 6 different pillars. We have the lifestyle pillar. This is the pillar that the activities that you've been thinking about, dreaming about in retirement, the travels, the time with grandkids, that cost money. How much is it going to cost? How are you going to pay for that? That's the remaining 5 pillars. Your income plan, tax plan, healthcare plan, investment plan, and then your legacy plan. Those 5 financial pillars help you live your lifestyle pillar. All 6 of those make up the Retire Secure roadmap.
Yeah, today we really focused a lot on income, investment, and taxes, but it's worth mentioning that to get that balance that a lot of people are looking for, you have to look at healthcare and legacy planning, because what you do with each of those pillars that are up on the screen impacts each other pillar.
They impact each other so significantly, and also having a plan in place before you retire is so important. Going back to my grandpa, he actually had a heart attack. And so he was forced into retirement. He wasn't planning, he retired at 55 because from a health condition. There's a whole lot of people that are forced into retirement today. My grandpa's plan was kind of pre-done. Now, if you don't pre-do your retirement plan, you're forced into it, you're trying to work backwards in an already stressful situation. And that's why it's so important to get this stuff in place prior to retiring or prior to you being forced into retirement, so you can adjust during an already stressful time.
Yeah, we often say 55 or older. 55 or older is a great time to start thinking about this, whether retirement's 2 years away or 10 years away. You have the plan built out. You have the questions answered. A great way to get those questions answered? A Retire Ready call. You can go to retirereadycall.com right now and schedule a time and a date that works for you to start the conversation with a retirement planner. It's low key, it's low pressure, and it's a great way to start finding balance when it comes to your retirement. This is Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click here for more great content from our team. Don't forget to subscribe to continue to receive helpful information for your retirement planning.